And now let's get insights from Integrated Bar of the Philippines National President, Attorney Allan Panolong. He joins us live this morning on Morning Matters. Good morning, Attorney. Thanks for being here on the show.
Good morning, Pauline, and good morning to our viewers.
So it's been an eventful week, especially on the political front. Let's start with the impeachment proceedings that took place earlier this week against President Bongbong Marcos. Attorney, how would you assess how the House Justice Committee conducted the proceedings?
They timely acted on the impeachment cases filed against the sitting president, no? And I think they wanted to solve the issue or the problem that they encountered during the time when the vice president was impeached. So talagang binibigyan nila ngayon ng tuhon at pansin yung mga impeachment cases.
Yes, a lot of analysts also pointed out, Attorney, na this time hindi talaga nag-dribble ang Kongreso, ang House of Representatives. They tackled this immediately, although it was also deemed insufficient when it came to determining the sufficiency in substance. Now, Attorney, critics say the complaints were railroaded, they were prematurely killed, and some of the members of the committee even appeared to be lawyering for the respondent, in this case, President Marcos. Do you share that sentiment also?
I haven't really looked into the impeachment cases that were filed before the House of Representatives. But, some of the members are lawyers. So maybe they look into the evidentiary in the evidence attached to the impeachment complaints, and on the basis of their evaluation and appreciation, they think that they believe that these evidence are insufficient. So they are in a position to rule on the insufficiency of substance, because we cannot allow an impeachment complaint to progress to the Senate if the evidence are wanting. So it would be a waste of money and resources on the part of the government. Not to mention that there are a lot of equally important legislative bills pending before the House of Representatives or the Congress in general, because there are also equally important bills in Senate, which would suffer a lot if an impeachment complaint or an impeachment proceeding will be had against an impeachable officer, then only to find out that the evidence are weak. So I think that is the position of the House Secretary of Justice. That's why they found out that it is insufficient in substance, although it is sufficient in form.
Oo, Attorney, kasi yung hinahanap talaga ng mga miyembro, yung personal knowledge and the authenticity of the records and the documents. And because eventually, if this does become impeachment, articles of impeachment, sila yung magiging prosecutors niyan, right? When it becomes a trial over at the Senate. But how can complainants strengthen any impeachment complaint moving forward, as for future impeachment complaints, knowing what we know now, kung gaano talaga sobrang arduous nitong process of establishing sufficiency in substance, Attorney?
Well, first things first, they have to lay down what are the particular violations that the impeachable officer had committed. Then upon determining so, then they have to check on the evidence. No, they have to look into the evidence. Number one, titingnan po nila kung ano yung relevance, competency, at saka yung authenticity ng isang evidence. Because, an evidence may be, anything may be used as evidence, but as to its admissibility, it's a different matter. So, ganun po yun. So, hindi, especially so that impeachment is a sui generis case, no? So, and we are holding the highest official of the land accountable for an alleged infraction. So the evidence must be convincing enough. Because remember that these impeachable officers, like the president and the vice president, they have mandate from the people. So in order to remove them from office by reason of their violation of the offenses mentioned in the Constitution, so the evidence should be really overwhelming. Hindi yun siya yung parang pwede na yan. So when we verify the evidence, it is actually not competent or it's irrelevant or an authentic one.
And I believe Chairwoman Luistro did liken this to preliminary investigation in court proceedings. So kailangan nandun talaga yung basis, it's grounded on solid basis and evidence. But now that there are forthcoming impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte, how do you see that prospering, Attorney?
Again, as I mentioned, it would depend on the evidence that will be produced by the proponents of the impeachment complaints. But impeachment is although it is a process or procedure of removing a highest official or those enumerated officials under the Constitution, but we have to take note that impeachment is actually a political exercise also. So may mga interplaying factors. So as far as the political aspect, it may have an effect on the progress of the impeachment cases should it be filed as mentioned next week by the proponents against the Vice President.
Well, the charges are still somewhat the same from the complaint that was filed last year, Attorney, no? It's still bribery, graft, and corruption. And mukhang yung evidence na gagamitin dito are yung mga notices of disallowance from COA, nandyan din yung mga disbursement forms. Do you think that will count as authentic records in order to hurdle sufficiency in substance?
If the as mentioned by Representative Luistro, if the process in the preliminary investigation will be similarly used in appreciating the impeachment complaint against the Vice President. So mataas po yung ban natin ngayon eh. Kailangan yung evidence should have meet this reasonable certainty of conviction, no? So having said that, if these documents are authentic and they were produced from the source, no, and that indeed there were findings by the competent government agency like the Commission on Audit, stating that there was indeed a illegal use of public funds, then it may. But if say the COA process is a long process yan eh, kasi it doesn't mean that it's a transaction was what's this they have this process na kung halimbawa i-disallow in audit yung isang bagay, meron pang remedies available for the government employee, pwede pa niyang i-appeal yun eh, pwedeng tumakbo hanggang Supreme Court. So meaning to say, as to the findings of irregularities or illegality of the transaction, hindi pa po fully settled yun. Because once it would be appealed before the Supreme Court, the court would settle whether the disbursement is allowed or not. So medyo magkakaroon sila ng problema dyan kung COA audit po yung gagamitin nila. Because the COA audit, the COA findings are not actually final.
Well, nabanggit nyo rin kanina, Attorney, this impeachment process is not just for exacting accountability. Let's face it, it's also a political game. It's a numbers game. But with that, does impeachment still function as an effective tool for accountability in our political system?
I would say yes, because this is a mix of holding our public officials accountable, and at the same time, if meron din siyang kaakibat na political interest, no. But as we look into the previous impeachment cases, I think somehow the impeachment was proven to be effective in removing those public officials concerned, no, who were alleged to have committed violations against the Constitution. Although meron nga lang siyang political, may halong politika po talaga. It is unavoidable because the especially when we're impeaching the highest official of the land, no, the president and the vice president.
Okay, but Attorney, some critics pointed out that the ruling of the Supreme Court na baka merong judicial overreach on their part because they did rule on something that is a legislative matter. What do you think? What do you make of the Supreme Court's ruling there? Did it in any way weaken or emasculate the House's power, exclusive power to initiate impeachment complaints?
While it may be true that the House of Representatives has this sole authority to initiate impeachment complaint against impeachable officers, but this is not an absolute power because under the 1987 Constitution, the power of the judiciary has been expanded, which includes to settle actual cases or actual dispute or case involving whether the agency has committed grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of its jurisdiction. So, ang impeachment complaint po, meron po niyang proseso eh. So once the process has not been complied with, then it becomes a judicial controversy. So it can be questioned before the court, which is the Supreme Court. So the court merely uphold the supremacy of the Constitution when it ruled that the impeachment case against the Vice President was unconstitutional because it did not pass through the constitutional requirement. So tama lang po yung ginawa ng Supreme Court.
Okay, but at the same time,
when it ruled, it did not actually. It was not a judicial overreach, but it was simply upholding the Constitution. Yun po yun.
But at the same time, Attorney, this episode, this whole debate has revived talks of charter change. Ano naman po ang posisyon nyo doon?
Masalimuot na kanyan na usapin yung about charter change because I think there are so many pending legislative measures before the Congress. Nandyan yung bills on anti-political dynasty, then proposal to amend the Constitution. So kailangan maisa yung pananaw ng ating mga mambabatas kasi parang nakikita ko parang sabog ang dami nilang plano. So they have to make a priority bill, no? Kung ano ba yung bills na pwedeng maging batas, no? So for the charter change, it's a very, I don't think as of the moment, I don't think it will pass through the Congress because as I said, mas maraming equally important issues, no, that the Congress should address, and even the people are for me, I think we are not also ready for that.
Okay, so from impeachment, if we may now shift to the anti-political dynasty bill. This week, the Senate already started deliberations on 6 versions of the bill. Ano po bang tingin niyo doon? Are we now closer this time to having this bill enacted into law? Because Attorney, bills have been filed in almost every Congress since 1987, but none have prospered. But do you think this time we might be closer to that?
I think so, because 2 weeks ago I was invited as a resource speaker in the House of Representatives, and there are 22 bills pending before the House. Defining what political dynasty is as enshrined in the Constitution. So. For so long as the House of Representatives and the Senate will work hand in hand on this, so I believe within this year or even next year, we may be able to pass. The Congress may be able to pass a law or enabling law that would define anti-political dynasty.
Pero ang tanong, Attorney, how do we define a political dynasty? I mean, from a legal standpoint, in your opinion, what level of consanguinity is generally considered acceptable for political succession or for those holding public office?
Alam niyo po, even the framers of the Constitution were really divided as to the definition on the political dynasty. No? In fact, that's why they left it to the Congress to pass an enabling law that would define anti-political dynasty. So the way I look at it, I think for me, the most acceptable is to prohibit up to second degree of consanguinity and affinity. Because if we expand further, my proposal, I understand there was a proposal to expand up to fourth degree.
Fourth degree.
So there are interplaying principles here, no, na pwedeng it may violate equal protection of the law, no? Kasi but what makes superior the rights of your, for instance, the rights of your first cousin who are already in public service, kung hanggang fourth degree ang prohibition or disqualification. So marami pong interplaying principles dito. In fact, if my memory serves me right, I think there's only one country which has this law, no, on anti-political dynasty. So far, nag-research po ako, wala pa akong nahanap ng mga batas na defining what is political dynasty. So it is left entirely to the Congress. So what I believe is acceptable is to
Second degree.
make it up to second degree of affinity and consanguinity, meaning to say from the parents to their children. So
Right.
yun po yung ano, kasi parang nagiging family affair siya kung father, mother, then yung mga anak, they are all holding elective public positions, especially in one political unit. So it is really well entrenched now that we have seen so many cases like that.
So hindi na po dapat umabot sa mga pinsan, sa mga kapatid pa, only to the second degree. We're gonna leave this conversation there for now. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. Integrated Bar of the Philippines National President Atty. Allan Panolong. Thank you po.
Thank you, Ms. Pauline.